Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. Jason had been working in the countryside for 3 years. I had been with him for 2. He was always so stubborn about writing me poems and singing to me. No matter how busy or tired he was, he'd make time to come see me. Whenever the city sent him subsidies, he'd rush to bring them to me. Even when I refused, he'd leave the money at my doorstep. On his days off, he would catch fireflies and take me to our secret hideout to watch the stars. Everything changed when Emily arrived for rural service. I overheard them speaking in their hometown dialect, thinking I couldn't understand. Why are you dating some country girl? You just forgot about me because she's pretty. There's no way I actually love her. I'm just using her to get back to the city. Her dad's the village chief. He can easily lie and get a spot to transfer back. What about me? Don't worry. We're childhood sweethearts. I'll help you get back too. What they didn't know was that my late mother was from the South City as well. I understood everything. Later, during a group labor day, a cow went berserk in the fields. Jason pushed me aside and ran to shield Emily with his body. I was gored by the raging animal. Both of my legs were broken. Blood poured from my mouth. That was the moment my heart completely shattered. I agreed to my father's suggestion to apply for the very first round of college entrance exams. When my friend heard that Emily was Jason's first love, she said, "Well, I guess that explains it. They were together before after all." My childhood friend Hannah gritted her teeth and said, "What a jerk. If he already had someone in his heart, why mess with Rachel? I say we charge him for being a player." Another friend, Jenny, snapped, "Exactly. Guys like him should be locked up and re-educated. Poor Rachel going through all this pain." I listened to them talk about Jason, but the tears wouldn't stop flowing. My chest felt like it was being torn apart. Jason kept appearing in my mind. He was different from the other boys in the village, gentle, well-mannered, romantic. He used to say I was unlike any girl he'd ever met, that I had this charming stubbornness that drew him in. He told me he wanted us to have a Western-style wedding one day, because I was the woman he'd chosen for life. Even when I overheard them speaking in that dialect, I told myself Jason was just making up excuses to keep Emily at bay. But when danger came and that bull charged at us, he shoved me away in frustration and ran straight to protect her. That look on his face is seared into my memory. I pinched my thigh hard, trying not to relive the pain. But the more I fought it, the harder the tears came. To make things worse, I started coughing up blood again, and the pain in my fractured legs became unbearable. "Rachel, please don't cry anymore," Hannah said, her voice trembling. "Right now you need to stay strong. You'll need the strength for surgery." Hannah held a bucket for me as Jenny paced nearby, furious. "If I see those two again, I swear I'll curse them to their faces." Just as she finished, a doctor rushed into the room. "Miss Rachel Jensen." Jenny and Hannah quickly stepped aside as the doctor came over to examine me. He frowned and said, "Luckily, there's no major internal damage, but the emotional shock caused internal bleeding. We need to operate soon, or the legs could suffer long-term damage." I was about to speak when Jason burst in. "Dr. Emily Chen in room 202 needs emergency care," he said urgently. The doctor frowned. "We need to prioritize. Miss Jensen's case is serious." Jason glanced at me, then turned to the doctor again. "Uncle Marcus, my father, James Hart, is your old friend. He always talked about you." The doctor's expression changed. "Ah, so you're James Hart's son. You were assigned here too." "Yes," Jason said, smiling faintly. "Uncle Marcus, I wouldn't make something like this up. Emily was severely frightened, and she sprained her ankle. She's about to join the National Dance Ensemble. She can't afford to be injured, not even a little." Then Jason looked at me and suddenly turned to the doctor, speaking in a low masculine tone. "She's different," he said. "She's just a village girl from Riverdale. She's not going anywhere. Spending her whole life in the countryside. Even if the surgery's delayed a bit, it doesn't really matter. You can come back and operate on her after you're done." My hand gripped the bed sheet so tightly my knuckles turned white. The doctor hesitated for a moment. "But I was here first," I said weakly. Jason smiled and added, "Uncle Marcus, if I return to the city, I'll ask my father if there are any open positions at the city hospital. Maybe we can help get you reassigned." The doctor sighed and walked out of the room. Both Jenny and Hannah shouted after him, but it was useless. I stared at the doctors retreating back. At that very moment, when Jason and I locked eyes one last time, I felt my heart shatter completely. I pulled out the college entrance exam application letter I had written a long time ago and handed it to Hannah and Jenny. "You two go home first," I said. "Give this letter to my dad for me. I'll stay here and wait for the surgery. And please don't tell him how badly I'm hurt." Last year, my dad told me that the National College Entrance Exam policy was about to resume, and the rural service program would soon end. He hoped I could leave Riverdale and go somewhere bigger, but I had been too caught up with Jason. I wanted to follow him or for him to stay here with me just to spend more time with him. I had no time or energy left to study. Hannah hesitated, then took the letter and left with Jenny. Before leaving, Jenny turned back and cursed at Jason. "You piece of trash. You're the worst kind of man. Two-faced, fickle, shameless. I hope you fall off a mountain and drown trying to catch fish, or get bitten by a snake pulling weeds in the field." Hannah added, "May Buddha make every word she said come true." Then the two of them left, leaving Jason standing there trembling with rage. He pointed at their backs and scoffed, "What a couple of wild village girls." I stared at him coldly and replied, "I'm one of those wild village girls too." Jason shook his head. "Rachel, you're supposed to go back to the city with me. Don't act like them." He let out a bitter smile. "Thanks, I guess, for still wanting to go back with me." He slowly walked over to me and lowering his eyes said, "The rural assignment program is ending. My father secured me a spot at the military academy. I'm the only one from Riverdale who qualifies." Suddenly, he felt like a complete stranger. My chest tightened. In the next moment, Jason grabbed my injured leg, squeezing it hard. The pain was so intense that tears burst from my eyes. "But Emily applied for a spot in the performing arts troupe. And you're her competition," he said. "Your father put your name in too." "It hurts, Jason. It hurts." I cried, begging him. The pain was so overwhelming, I couldn't fight back. My voice was barely a whisper. I never wanted to compete with her. I never even thought about applying. Jason finally let go. Then he whispered in anguish, "I'm sorry, Rachel. You can come back to the city with me. I'm just afraid Emily won't make it. She grew up spoiled. She can't survive out here." Right as he said that, I heard a sharp crack from my leg. Jason and I both froze. His eyes widened slightly as he mumbled, "I won't abandon you because of this." But I was already numb from the pain, completely drained, slumped on the bed. My leg dangled off the side like a discarded piece of trash. I looked like I'd been pulled out of a river, pale, weak, and lifeless. All I could do was glare at Jason, my eyes filled with hatred. His eyes were red-rimmed. He leaned in, trying to kiss me, but I turned my head away. His lips landed on my earlobe instead. "You disgust me," I said, cold and barely audible. Jason whispered, "I know you're hurting, but if you stick with me, I can take you back to the city. We can live a better life. Just hold on a little longer." My eyes welled with tears as I looked at him sharply. "Jason, let's break up. You think I liked you just to get back to the city? You really think your city status is that important?" Jason's brows furrowed. "Rachel, I told you I don't like it when you act this way." I cut him off. "When Emily acted headstrong and bold, you said she was a confident, fearless city girl. But when I speak up, I'm suddenly too loud, too much. It's all just your bias." Jason suddenly snapped. "Don't compare yourself to Emily." At that moment, everything felt meaningless. Tears streamed down my face again as I whispered, "Yeah, you're right. I'm not good enough for you, huh, Jason? Then let's break up." Jason's voice softened. "I'm sorry, Rachel. You know how much I've done for you. My parents knew about you. They didn't approve, but I insisted on bringing you back with me." I stared at him in disbelief. This is what your so-called effort looks like. Getting the doctor to leave me in the middle of surgery and snapping my leg. He sighed. "Rachel, you're just a farmer. After we get married, you can be a housewife, take care of my parents, raise our kids. That's enough. But Emily is different. She's a girl with ambition. She needs this opportunity. Pain twisted in my chest. I pounded my fist against the hospital bed and screamed, "What is your heart made of? Why can't I have dreams too? I'm someone's daughter as well. Why should I end up as your family's maid?" As I shouted, I ripped off the thin iron bracelet from my wrist and hurled it at his face. It was the bracelet he had spent weeks learning to make from the village blacksmith. I remembered how he'd placed a bunch of fireflies inside a haystack for me. How the glow lit up his gentle, handsome face. He had told me, "Rachel, once we go back to the city, I'll buy you gold and silver rings. I'll make you look beautiful every day." The bracelet clattered to the ground, and Jason stood frozen. Then anger overtook him. "Calm down," he barked. "I'm going to check on Emily. You'll understand everything soon enough." I watched him walk away and couldn't stop myself from bursting into tears. That bracelet lay alone on the hospital floor, as if its creator had already forgotten all about it. When the doctor returned and examined my leg, his face turned pale. He quickly called in a nurse to prep for emergency surgery. As they wheeled me toward the operating room, I caught a glimpse through the open door. Jason was gently coaxing Emily to drink some soup. In that moment, my heart shattered so completely I went numb. When I came to again, my father was sitting by my bedside, his face worn with exhaustion. "Dad." My voice cracked with emotion. He looked at me, eyes red-rimmed. "Rachel, I'm so sorry," he said. "Especially to your mother." I shook my head. This was all my fault. I've been foolish, chasing after things that never should have been. He looked down and said, "The doctor told me about your leg." I shook my head again bitterly. It could have healed normally, but Jason came in and deliberately broke it. My dad's expression darkened instantly. "I was wrong about that boy," he growled. "Someone like him doesn't belong in military school. If he gets in, he'll only ruin the country." Tears welled up in my eyes, but I had no way to prove anything. My dad's face hardened. "Don't worry about it. He can't leave until spring anyway. These next few months will be a living hell for him. But your performing arts path is gone now. The only option left is to fight for college. At the very least, get into a teaching program. You can be a teacher someday." I nodded. After a week in the hospital, I moved back home to recover. My dad was busy, so he hired Mrs. Wong from the village to cook for me every day. All I had to do was focus on studying. For the next few months, I buried myself in books day and night. Sometimes I heard Jason calling my name from outside the yard, but I ignored him completely. Every time Mrs. Wong came to collect the dishes, she'd gently say, "Eat more, girl. You'll need energy to study. Isn't it great now? Us women can do great things too." I would smile at her, but my heart always ached a little. You see, in front of someone who truly sees you, you can be ambitious too. Jenny and Hannah came by a few times trying to bring up Jason, but I always cut them off. Eventually, they stopped mentioning him and rarely came to disturb me. In the blink of an eye, several months had passed. To avoid any mishaps, my dad personally took me to the county to sit for the college entrance exam. A little over a month later, I received my acceptance letter. I was supposed to leave for North Capital University the next day. That afternoon, Mrs. Wong invited me to her son's engagement banquet. But as soon as I sat down, I sensed something off about the atmosphere. Scanning the room, my heart sank. Jason and Emily were there, sitting close together. Emily was glaring at me, her eyes full of hostility. She lifted their intertwined fingers for everyone to see. But Jason's expression twisted strangely, and he said nothing. I suddenly found it all laughable, and had no intention of dealing with the two of them. But Emily just had to stir things up. She picked up a chicken claw and said, "Jason, look at this. One of the claws is super long, the other so short it looks like a weird little crutch." Then she burst out laughing. Jason's face darkened. "That's enough, Emily." But she shrugged him off. "What? So now we can't even joke about a chicken claw?" I flung my chopsticks directly at her face. I said coldly. "This is Mrs. Wong's son's engagement party. I don't want to cause a scene here because of you." Without another word, I walked over, politely said goodbye to Mrs. Wong, and turned to leave. But Jason chased after me. "Rachel, where have you been these days? Why have you been ignoring me? I turned my head slightly and said flatly, we broke up. You have someone new now. Or rather, you got back together with your ex. Why should I care about you? Jason looked embarrassed and reached out to stop me. Rachel, I'm heading back to my province in the spring. Come with me. I'll break up with Emily. I gave him a bitter smile. You're really full of yourself, aren't you? Emily caught up to us and out of nowhere, she slapped me across the face. You're the real. She screamed. Always seducing other people's men. I clutched my cheek. Jason grabbed my other hand. Rachel, stop fighting. Emily took the opportunity to slap me several more times. You're just a country girl trying to follow us back to the city. You think a peasant can become a phoenix? Keep dreaming. What's wrong with being from the countryside, young lady? A stern voice rang out. And who gave you the right to bully someone in broad daylight? I turned my swollen face to look and saw my dad standing there with a man in military uniform. Emily stiffened and refused to respond. My dad's voice was low and cold. You need to call him Uncle Chin. Emily scoffed. She clearly looked down on my father, a village chief, and assumed he had no powerful connections. If you want me to call someone uncle, she said smugly, they better be somebody important. I only call you village chief out of courtesy. I'm leaving soon anyway. I don't need to deal with people like you anymore. Uncle Chin gave her a tight smile. Seems like this young lady lacks discipline. My dad shook his head and left with Uncle Chin. As I watched them walk away, I gave Emily a few hard slaps of my own. Then I turned to Jason and said with finality, don't come looking for me again. Jason frowned. You don't need to talk like that. You'll come with me in a few months anyway. Emily erupted. She clung to Jason, sobbing. Jason, I gave myself to you. If you don't want me anymore, I'll report you for harassment. Jason looked at me in a panic, but I covered my ears in disgust and walked away without looking back. Once I got home, I rummaged through everything and packed up all the gifts Jason had ever given me. That night, I dumped the box in front of his door. Jason, whatever drama you two have, I want no part of it. Not in this life. At dawn, I dragged my suitcase and set off for North Capitol. It wasn't until I stood on the grounds of North Capitol University that I finally felt something real. I had left Riverdale. I had escaped that murky, humiliating mess. Dragging my suitcase, footstep by footstep, I was suddenly met with a hand reaching out to help. I turned and saw a bold, confident girl with a buzz-cut boy standing beside her. She took my suitcase with one hand and offered the other to me. I'm Phoebe Fu, she said cheerfully. Born and raised in North Capitol, business major. I shook her hand and smiled faintly. Rachel Jen from Jian County, same major, she beamed. Wow, what a coincidence. A classmate on day one. Then she gave me a friendly nudge. You're from the South, huh? You'll need a little time to adjust to the North Capitol weather. But don't worry, I've got your back. She patted the guy beside her. This is my cousin Felix Fu, also a North Capitol local. He's majoring in computer science. Then she added with pride, we were both part of the countryside youth labor program. Just got back ourselves. Are you from the countryside too? Felix asked. I gave him a polite smile. Not quite. I'm from a rural village in Jiang County. Born and raised. Felix took my suitcase while exchanging a look with Phoebe. She suddenly exclaimed, you're amazing. I need to cling to you for luck. I can tell you're going to do big things. I couldn't help but laugh. Why would you say that? Phoebe smiled. Back when we were sent to the countryside, people still heavily favored sons over daughters. No one thought of supporting their daughter's education. So for you to make it out, your family must be really open-minded, and you must be seriously capable. I thought of my dad and smiled with genuine happiness. Just like that, we arrived at the dorm, chatting and laughing. As fate would have it, Phoebe and I ended up in the same room, bunkmates no less. I threw myself into my studies, and Phoebe seemed to treat me like her rival. She studied just as hard. Before long, our determination spread throughout the dorm. Even the girls who used to complain or tease us joined in. Phoebe and I took over the English corner of our dorm. We started competing with each other over who could improve faster. She brought a tape recorder from home, and played English tapes while we listened together. I shared all the learning methods I had documented without holding anything back. We competed, but we also supported one another. That, I felt, was the kind of rivalry girls should have. Felix was always tagging along behind us, playing bodyguard or running errands. The three of us got along surprisingly well. Soon the semester came to an end. After finals, we started preparing for New Year's Eve, the arrival of the 1980s. The streets were buzzing with people full of joy and hope for the new decade. December in North Capital brought heavy snow. I ran to the local shop to call my dad, then rejoined Phoebe and Felix. We were bundled up in thick winter coats, heading to a restaurant for hot pot. As we walked under the flickering street lights, memories of Riverdale came flooding back. It felt like another lifetime. Phoebe sighed. The country's developing so fast. The gap between regions is becoming more and more obvious. At the restaurant, the cozy warmth wrapped around us. Conversations buzzed from every table. People were talking about the new policy. No more ration coupons for spending. Everyone was excited about a consumer-driven economy and a new era. Someone asked, "So what's your dream?" Phoebe turned to me. "What about you? What's your dream?" Just as I was about to answer, I glanced up and saw a familiar face. Jason. He stood by the door, hunched, looking at me with hesitant eyes. Felix turned around and took a sip of soda. "A friend of yours?" I shook my head. "Just a former youth volunteer who worked in our village." I stood up. "I'll go deal with it. You two eat first. I'll be back in a bit." Phoebe sized Jason up wearily. "He doesn't look like he's up to any good. Stay right outside the window where we can see you. If anything happens, just wave. I'll tackle him myself if I have to." I smiled and nodded. When I reached the entrance, I didn't bother looking at Jason. I just jerked my chin toward the door, signaling him to step outside. The cold wind hit me the moment we stepped out. I realized I hadn't brought my coat, so I breathed into my hands for warmth. "Say whatever you came to say," I told him. Jason looked miserable. "Would you still be willing to marry me?" I stared at him, shocked. "Of course not. You came all the way to North Capital just to ask me that." That's when I took a closer look at him. In just over 6 months, he had lost a lot of weight. He no longer looked like the man I once knew. Unkempt beard, slouched posture, his whole demeanor full of defeat. Jason lowered his head. "Is it because you've been in the city now? Are you looking down on me? Hoping to find some fancy guy here?" I let out a laugh, cold and sharp. Jason, even now you still don't think you've done anything wrong. Look at me now, crippled. Did you ever feel even a shred of guilt? When you snapped my leg, I wanted to kill you." Jason lifted his head, his face full of shame. "I'm sorry, Rachel. Back then, I just thought I could take care of you. That was enough." I shook my head and replied coldly, "Back then you didn't even see me as a human being." Jason pressed his lips together. "I admit at first I did look down on you. But as we spent more time together, I fell in love with you. It's just my perspective was too narrow. I forgot that you also have feelings, dreams, ambitions. I used to think people from the countryside were just lazy and waiting to be fed. I was wrong." I let out a bitter laugh. "Jason, I told you before I left, don't come bothering me again." He looked desperate. "It was only after you left that I realized how much I liked you. But it was too late." Emily messed things up. She pissed off the reviewer during her final evaluation. And now she's lost her last chance to go back to the city. Then she tried to drag me down with her. She even drugged me. Now I've lost my chance too. But if we get married, I could transfer to your household registration. I looked at him squarely. It's the 1980s now. The country just drew a special economic zone in the South, and you're still obsessing over household registrations. That only proves you have nothing else going for you. I feel blind for ever liking someone like you. I turned to leave, but Jason reached out to stop me. In a flash, Felix burst out of the restaurant and kicked Jason straight to the ground. "Hey you punk. Daring to mess around in North Capital." I quickly grabbed Felix's arm to stop him from going further. But Jason looked humiliated, like he'd just been crushed. "So you really did find someone local," he said bitterly. "No wonder you look down on me now. Felix narrowed his eyes coldly. When we were on a rural assignment, we saw plenty of guys like you using your looks and your city ID to chase after good, honest girls, never with any real feelings. It's disgusting. His words sent a chill down my spine. He was right. What made that relationship so revolting was that Jason never truly loved me. Not for a second. Phoebe rushed outside and draped a thick coat over my shoulders. She glared at Jason with pure hatred in her eyes. I lowered my head and whispered, "Get out of my sight. You broke my leg. I'll never forgive you. I hope you live a miserable life." Felix stepped on Jason's leg without hesitation. I pulled him back immediately. Jason winced in pain but gave me a bitter smile. "Rachel, I really did love you. I swear there were no selfish motives." I suddenly replied in the South City dialect. "Really? Wasn't it just because I'm the village chief's daughter?" Jason froze like he'd been struck by lightning. You can understand South City dialect?" I gave him a mocking smile and continued. "My mother was from South City. She taught me the language from childhood. You thought you were being discreet." Jason lowered his head, defeated. "I'm sorry, Rachel. I know nothing I say matters anymore." "Then leave," Phoebe snapped. Felix cracked his knuckles. "One more second and I'll beat you to a pulp." Jason stood up slowly, face expressionless. He looked at me one last time, then turned and walked away. His thin, hunched figure looked especially desolate in the snowy night as the new year approached. 2 years later, I got letters from Hannah and Jenny. They said Jason ended up trapped in the village, tricked by Emily. The two of them got married there. On the day of the wedding, Emily was visibly pregnant. Her parents were so furious they cut ties with her entirely, saying she had brought shame on the family. Jason's parents worked tirelessly to get them both transferred back to the city, and eventually succeeded. After that, no one in Riverdale ever mentioned them again. Hannah and Jenny decided to go work in Shenzhen to seek better opportunities. They refused to stay in Riverdale forever. They resisted arranged marriages and defied their parents. In the end, they ran away to Shenzhen. After they sent back their first paycheck, their parents began to support their decision. Jenny wrote, "Our families are practical. Let's just say we bought our freedom with money." Another year later, Phoebe, Felix, and I were also assigned internships in Shenzhen. "Didn't you ask me what my dream was?" I said to Phoebe, standing in the middle of Shenzhen Central Street. "I don't want a life where I can see the end from the start. I want to build something of my own, a business, a brand." Phoebe looked at me and said, "If you've really made up your mind, then we're all in," I said. Felix jumped in enthusiastically. "Don't forget about me. I can do anything. Technical work, manual labor, whatever you need." I laughed. "Let's start by saving up some capital." The three of us firmly decided to quit the jobs assigned by our school and start from scratch, building up funds by setting up street stalls and flipping merchandise. Phoebe and I were in charge of sourcing and selling goods, while Felix helped replenish stock and kept shady people at bay. We spent our days buying and selling. During the hardest times, we barely ate one meal a day. Sometimes we were so exhausted we collapsed into bed without even showering. But it turned out street vending had been the smartest move. We could make enough in a single day to buy a boom box. Then one day, we saw a foreign man getting his bag snatched. Felix sprinted over and kicked the thief to the ground, then dragged him to the police station. The man who introduced himself as Jerry thanked us and mentioned he was looking for a clothing manufacturer in China. Phoebe and I exchanged a look. I didn't know why, but I felt this was a huge opportunity. I told him, "We can do apparel manufacturing for you." Phoebe blinked in surprise, but quickly backed me up. Jerry said he'd come visit our facilities and check our qualifications in a week. Without hesitation, I agreed. By then, we'd saved a decent amount. Early the next morning, we set out to find a factory to rent, but everywhere we went, the prices were over budget. Finally, we met a business owner who wanted to sell his entire workshop, including sewing machines and equipment, because he was moving back home. We gritted our teeth and took out a bank loan. We bought the factory. Thankfully, the licenses were included in the purchase, so we didn't have to worry about legal formalities. And it turned out we'd made the right call. After inspecting the place, Jerry was impressed. Maybe it was Felix's honest charm. Or maybe Jerry just had a soft spot for us. But he placed his trust in our little team. We officially became one of his suppliers, specializing in OEM production for Western brands. At the time, hiring in Shenzhen was easy thanks to the influx of migrant workers. But we kept our screening strict, except for male security guards. We only hired quick-handed, clean-record female workers. In the beginning, Jerry didn't give us large orders. We even lost money just to fulfill them perfectly. But after a few years of losses, things exploded. His minimum order quantity jumped to 100,000 units. We were loading and shipping 10 full containers at a time. Soon we weren't just producing clothes anymore. Denim, shoes, everything was scaling up. Our factories kept expanding. Finally, the business began to stabilize. Phoebe handled HR, I managed the finances, and Felix took care of client relations. After 3 years, our growth solidified, and things were looking up. One evening, Felix and I returned from a client dinner. As we walked through the factory, Phoebe suddenly called out, "Rachel, I think these two are from your hometown." I walked over, puzzled, and saw a middle-aged man and woman standing in the reception area. I took the ID Phoebe handed me, glanced at it, and froze. It was Jason and Emily. Jason looked older, worn out by life, with a gaunt face and eyes dulled by hardship. He looked over 10 years older than he actually was. Emily, meanwhile, had gained a lot of weight. She no longer resembled the dainty girl from back then. I looked up in shock, and Jason clearly recognized me too. His expression twitched awkwardly, and he gave Emily a little tug, trying to get her to leave. But Emily had recognized me as well. She suddenly screamed, "You cursed, you spiteful bitch." I frowned and called for security. Phoebe's eyes lit up with realization. "He's the guy who came to Beijing looking for you back then, isn't he?" Jason suddenly bowed deeply. "I'm sorry, President Rachel. My wife's just emotionally unstable. I'll take her away immediately." But before he could grab Emily, she lunged at me and knocked me to the ground. Holding me down, she shouted through gritted teeth, "It should have been you marrying Jason. You ruined my life. You made me marry this man and waste my youth in his family. You ruined my future, and now I can't even have children." I signaled to Phoebe, Felix, and the security team with a quick wave of my hand. She sneered at me and said, "You were the one who treated him like treasure and insisted on marrying him. And didn't he treat you like treasure, too? Didn't he hurt me just to protect you?" Emily lunged forward and wrapped her hands around my neck, screaming, "You should have died that day when the bull charged at you. I fed that bull drugs beforehand, but somehow you still survived. If you died, I wouldn't have lost my chance to join the performing arts troupe. It was supposed to be me, not her." I was nearly suffocating before I managed to signal the security guards. They rushed in and dragged Emily off me. Felix helped me up, glaring with disgust at both Emily and Jason. I coughed a few times, then calmly said, "Call the police. Show them the surveillance footage. I want this woman to have a criminal record." Jason, horrified, dropped to his knees in front of me. "Rachel, please, for the sake of what we once had, let her go. Ever since she lost the baby, she hasn't been right in the head." Emily screamed, "It's all your parents' fault, acting like royalty, making me do all the housework, not letting me work, calling me a worthless chicken who can't lay eggs." I gave a cold laugh. Jason once said, "You are a strong, independent woman with ambition." Emily scoffed. "Whoever marries him is cursed. He's a spineless coward who can't even protect his woman." Jason's hands trembled as he pointed at her. "You shut up. Haven't I done enough for you?" But Emily was hysterical. "You're pathetic. I should be like Rachel. Shining, successful. I should be President Chun, not your wife." Phoebe, Felix, and I exchanged glances as the security guards began escorting Emily to the nearby police station. Somewhere along the way, Felix pulled me into a comforting embrace. Jason turned to chase after Emily, but suddenly looked back and saw me leaning into Felix's arms. His eyes filled with tears. "I knew it," he shouted. "I said it years ago. You two were having an affair and you denied it." I looked at the worn-out, accusatory man before me and saw the faint shadow of the young poet I once knew. How could someone change this much? I chuckled bitterly. "What does it matter to you? Worry about getting a job. That seemed to hit a nerve. Jason suddenly grabbed a piece of iron from the courtyard and charged at me. I didn't have time to react. Felix stepped in and took the blow for me. Blood burst from his back on impact. Phoebe screamed and rushed over to him, yelling to the people around, "Call an ambulance now." Others, shocked, ran to get help. Jason looked crazed, eyes red with rage. "You look down on me. I'll show you what I can do." Felix tried to stand and shield me, but he lost too much blood and collapsed. I dodged as best I could, though my arm got scraped. Jason blocked the main exit, but a few workers used the distraction to climb over the back wall and alert the authorities. The police station wasn't far. Soon enough, security and police arrived. After confirming that no one had died and Jason was no longer a major threat, they broke open the gate. When Jason saw the officers in uniform, he froze. His hands trembled. The iron bar clattered to the ground, and he instinctively raised his hands in surrender. The police cuffed him and took him away. The ambulance arrived moments later. Felix was carried onto a stretcher, and I was escorted along with him. My injuries weren't serious, but Felix needed to be hospitalized. While Phoebe cared for her brother, she let out a long sigh. "My dumb little brother has fallen for you, you know. But don't feel pressured. If you don't feel the same, just be honest with him. Otherwise, he'll keep throwing himself at you." I stayed quiet for a long moment, but how could I not know? Everything Felix had done for me these past few years. I saw it all and I remembered it. After a pause, I finally nodded. "I understand," I told Phoebe. "I'll handle it properly." I stayed by Felix's bedside for a full day and night before he finally woke up. The moment he opened his eyes, he anxiously asked, "Are you okay?" Tears welled up in my eyes. "You're lying there like this and still worried about me?" I scolded him. "Focus on your recovery first." Felix chuckled sheepishly and scratched his head in embarrassment. I softened a little. "I'm fine." "Really? Jason and Emily have both been detained. Jason probably won't be getting out for years. And you, next time don't try to play the hero like that." Felix suddenly turned serious. "But you being safe is my biggest wish. I just want you to be healthy and happy." Through tears I smiled. "Okay, then you have to stay healthy too so we can stay together for a long, long time." He nodded, and then his eyes lit up. You mean?" I nodded again. His face beamed with joy. He tried to lean in to kiss me but pulled on his wound and winced in pain, his face contorting. So I leaned in and kissed him instead. His face turned red like a tomato just as Phoebe walked in. She covered her mouth and laughed. "I was actually worried you two might fall out with each other." Clearly, I had nothing to worry about. We both looked down shyly. Later, Felix and I got married. We had a daughter, and I brought my dad to Shenzhen so he could enjoy his retirement close to us. Jenny and Hannah had both built careers of their own, and only after they'd made something of themselves were they willing to come see me again. I brought my daughter along to meet them. They were just as lively as ever, quick-witted, and full of life. Hannah had gone into the restaurant business. The very restaurant where we met was one of her chain's top locations. She was now known as Boss Hannah. After making it big, she donated to elementary and middle schools in our old village, Riverdale, and funded education for hundreds of young girls. Jenny had become the owner of a chain of beauty salons. She looked radiant, like a woman truly living her best life. She had donated a library to Riverdale. As for me, I routinely donated funds to help pave roads and refurbish the village. I also supported underprivileged girls with college scholarships after their college entrance exams. Suddenly, Jenny smirked and gossiped. "Remember when I cursed Jason? Looks like it worked. He really did get his karma. Apparently, after he got out of prison, no one would hire him because of his criminal record. Still proud and arrogant, he refused to do anything. He ended up drinking and smoking all day, loitering around the streets. Emily, also full of pride, had already been pushed to her limit by his useless family. In the end, she couldn't take the downfall of being married to a man like him." Jenny continued, "One day, Emily just snapped. She drugged the whole family. Jason's parents happened to skip dinner, but Jason ate the poisoned food and died. His parents called the police, But since Emily was diagnosed with a mental disorder, the police didn't take her. They committed her to a horrible psychiatric facility instead. Eventually, she added, Emily took her own life there. I gently covered my daughter's ears and just smiled. I didn't say anything. Seeing my silence, Hannah probably figured I truly didn't care anymore. She raised her glass and said, the three powerhouses of Riverdale reunited again here in Shenzhen. Jenny grinned and added, they say big changes are coming in the 90s. Maybe we'll be picking up gold from the streets soon. The country's only going to get better from here. The three of us clinked our glasses together, toasting the unyielding spirits we'd forged. The strength that never let us stop moving forward. In Shenzhen, we finally stepped into the golden age of the 1990s. And for the first time, the future truly felt full of hope.